beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obuchi. Thanks a lot for joining us. It's been a very hectic week for a lot of Nigerians, whether you're talking politically or the economy, or insecurity or otherwise. We woke up this morning hearing news about an incident that occurred in Delta States, where I believe at least 14 or 15 members of the Nigerian Armed Forces were killed. And there have been just conflicting reports about, what's going to happen, what has happened. And we're just, first of all, sending our condolences to the families of those soldiers who were murdered. And, of course, to the Nigerian defense community as a whole. But also hoping that this does not escalate into something that the country cannot afford at this time. There's way too much going on, and we're hoping that this entire situation is handled in the best way possible with no more loss of lives, at least we're hoping. But I'm joined here by Bayemioke, who's been here before. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ebuka.
Yeah, just quickly on that note, we are still not sure exactly what's happened in Delta State, but there's any thoughts on that?
I personally think that the rate at which the security in Nigeria is depreciating is becoming concerning. But for us, even though we live in Lagos, we don't live in Delta State. When we get to that point where people or citizens or some crooks of guys are attacking the Nigerian military, it becomes really disturbing and concerning. I've been following the news since yesterday, and it's sad. Like you said, condolences to the families of those that lost their loved ones, and of course to the Nigerian military system as a whole. However, I think the response of the military also needs to be checked. Two wrongs will never make a right. I think we should let intelligence take a lead in solving this problem and not necessarily emotions or force. And I hope that we're able to bring the perpetrators of this very awful act on the nation, because they didn't just attack those families, they attacked the nation. On the nation, I hope that they are being brought to book at the earliest possible time. But my condolences to the family and, of course, to the Nigerian military force.
Very true. I mean, the Nigerian Army handled on X, formerly known as Twitter, did say that some arrests have been made and steps are in place to unravel the motive behind the attack. So we're hoping that at least it's handled in that way. But let's move away from that quickly and just go into the economy, because it's been a big thing in the last year plus, right. And even longer, because it's hard to come across Nigerians anymore who have a smile on their faces. Mm-hmm. Things are unbelievably tough. We did get the inflation numbers for February 2024 at 31.7%, up from 29.9% in January. These are record numbers on so many levels for Nigerians, and people say it's even higher, especially when you talk about food inflation. We'll go to the markets and we see, what's going on there. How are Nigerians surviving? Do you see any headway anytime soon in the horizon?
Ebuka, inflation generally in Nigeria is 70% decided by our commodities, our consumables, both local and imported. 70% of inflation is driven by this. It shows that if intervention is not done quickly and rightly, we may be heading for even higher inflation. I don't know if the tight monetary policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria is necessarily solving the problem, but I will leave that for economists to argue. But from my own point of view, as a development practitioner, I believe that if 70% of our inflation is dictated or by, consumables, I believe that it is high time we start looking at, diversifying our economy. We have been talking about this, we have been paying lip services to this, and for a country that is import dependent, you should expect that our economy is highly dollarized. So if we are not, we need to reduce the cost of energy, reduce the cost of production. We need to give attention to local assets development. Security is actually part of the things that is, driving inflation high. The government is doing everything it can. Of course, inflation is a monster that needs to be fought, right? I see the government doing that in terms of, tightening the monetary policy. But how that is going to solve the problem in the long run is what I don't know. But I think in the immediate, we need to actually pay more attention, to local assets development, to ensuring that we improve the security so that improve security so that our farmers can go back to farm. We need to start exploring cheaper sources of energy so that cost of production, can reduce. Manufacturers they're complaining. P&G has left. Several other companies are leaving. Multinationals are leaving because of how hard things are, as far as the country is concerned. So I think we need to, increase our foreign reserve, of course, by maybe improving, production or increasing production of crude oil. But most importantly, we need to diversify our economy, stop paying lip services to this, and make sure that our farmers can go back to farm, increase security, make sure that we incentivize agriculture as much as we can. If our inflation is driven by food, we need to do a lot more in incentivizing food production, in Nigeria. But Ebuka, if you look at it, the states that controls the 30% of Nigerian landmass for education and for agriculture today are under siege. If you look at Niger State, if you look at states like Adamawa and some of these other states that control 30% of our landmass, you see that insecurity is a major problem, in terms of food production in Nigeria. And as long as that continues, we're going to actually continue to see rising inflation. And how much longer, Nigerians can withhold or withstand this pressure, this inflationary pressure before it, degenerates to a state of anarchy in the country is what I don't know. But I hope that I believe that the government is listening, and I think that they should continue to intensify their effort in stabilizing the economy, especially in local asset production and providing security to improve food production and of course reduce the cost of production for manufacturers.
What are your thoughts on this idea that maybe we need to look back at our policy on the ban of importation of certain foods, whether it's rice. Wheat keeps coming up a lot, right? Nigeria is a huge consumer of wheat. And a lot of the bans on these things was placed because we're trying to encourage farming, local farming. Things that are not banned, the tariffs are ridiculous. I think it's almost a 70% tariff on wheat.
Yeah. And
Nigeria consumes, from bread to everything, we have to import these things. What we produce in Nigeria, I hear, is just about 5 or 6% of what we actually use. So it's not like importing is going to hurt that. That's illogic. Do you think some of these things need to be looked at where, the customs keep hiking prices? There was an adjustment again last week to 1,600 to the dollar for clearing stuff. So shouldn't that be some sort of short-term goal, you think, while we're looking at all these diversifications that we keep talking about that look more medium to long term?
If we're not, I agree with you 100%. If we're not producing enough to serve the local needs, and of course we are an import-dependent, economy. The government is saying, oh, we are giving discounts on food, oh, we are giving palliatives. That is not a solution to our problem. That is not a sustainable long-term solution to our problem. So I agree with you that in the interim, on the short-term basis, the government may need to reduce tariffs or give concession. We are giving concession to some of these billionaires, on some of their, import transactions. So who says that we should not consider the same policy adjustment, for especially in the food, in food security, to secure, food the more in the country. So maybe we can give concession, maybe make, importation of wheat, tariff-free, and rice and some production that maybe will solve our immediate problem as far as the country is concerned, whilst we, put more effort into increasing local productivity of some of these, commodities. I think I agree with you in terms of concession, in terms of tariffs, on some, categories of food. And the government has been advised, and I believe that the advisors of the government are also, they should be, they are in the streets. They are seeing, they are hearing, they are seeing, hopefully they are feeling the pain of an average Nigerian. And I believe that, issuing concession and, making some of these food items, tariff-free can solve our problem in the short term. I think I agree with you 100% on that, Ebuka.
Sometimes it's hard to believe that they feel it. When you hear figures like 3.7 trillion being thrown around in the Senate about what was funded and what was not. But that's a conversation for later. The Lagos State government, of course, the governor has, talked about this thing he's trying to do with food markets to sell foods at cheaper rates. I think it's supposed to kick off today.
Yes, it did.
25% discounts on staples like rice, beans, gari, bread, eggs, and I'm wondering, how is this supposed to work? Is this something that looks like it's sustainable? It looks like if I mean, we're just trying to patch things. Does it look like something that is worth, the while for something that is this deeply rooted?
Yeah. First of all, I think Governor Sanwo-Olu needs to be, really applauded, for showing concern for the, livelihood of the citizens, So if anything, any government official is doing right now to cushion this inflationary pressure and whatever, the hardship that we have in the land is actually commendable, and I think I really want to applaud him. As much as that is very important and that is applaudable in the short term, it does not solve the long-term problem, Of course, if you watched the media chat Governor Sanwo-Olu had with the media houses, I believe Channels was also one of them, one of the media houses invited, you would see that he has, a long-term plan. I hope that they can stick to the plan. I know he has really competent people in government. I believe that they can stick to his plan to have a long-term solution to food problem as far as Lagos State is concerned. And I think that the work is doing at Imota. He has talked about, importing paddies so that we can have more rice production. I hope that the government gives him the concession the state requires to be able to import, more paddies. And I also, the work he's doing in Ekpe, region to see how to maximize, Lagos is small in terms of farmland, and I see the partnership they have with Ogun State in terms of food production and other northern states. So you can see visionary leadership of, Governor Sanwo-Olu to tackle the problem. So, but in the interim, this intervention is applaudable. We should and I think other states can learn from it. All right. However, I think we need to also start looking at how do we profile long-term solution to making sure that households can sustain themselves. So, and that comes with heavy investment in agriculture. The Badagry region of Lagos State has been long abandoned in terms of investment in agriculture. That area is still developing. You have high land mass. Lagos State government has a farm settlement there, and I think more investment in that axis in Ekpe and Ikorodu, that's the developing regions of Lagos State in agriculture. We actually do a lot more, incentivizing farmers, and of course providing more security for farmers, and of course access to financing, especially because if you look at the interest rate and lending rates today, no farmer can go to the bank to actually to lend money for agricultural purposes. So government can actually pump some of this money into providing single-digit loans or possibly grants for farmers so that we can have more food production for state consumption.
Are any of these great ideas going to work? I mean, yes, we've all talked about funding for agriculture, do better with storage of our produce, delivery, transportation, and all of that. Is any of this going to work with the way our security is set up today? Farmers can barely farm. The ones who farm can't transport because they're either attacked on the way, or we hear all the stories, whether it's in Benue, in Plateau, in Delta, now wherever it is, it's a recurring story now for probably about a decade now. And nobody seems to know how to fix that, or is there just no political will?
Political will, I wouldn't be able to answer because I'm not out there, but security is critical to development. A country cannot be stable, no development can happen if insecurity is prevalent like we have it in Nigeria today. So I think the president needs to declare a state of emergency that has already declared itself, on security in Nigeria. And I think our service, where are the days where intelligence gathering was really like one of the major strengths of Nigerian security, military forces? So I think that we need to go back to the days of, intelligence gathering, and of course have more collaborative effort between these, apparatus. That's security apparatus. And of course, I think community policing, I think the government to start looking at community policing right now, because I think it's going to go a long way in solving the security problem. Because if the people are being empowered to protect themselves, it is easier, for farmers to protect themselves, or for government to provide, security for farmers and they can go to the farm. the same thing for transportation. Apart from even the insecurity on transportation, the cost of transportation is really high. I see the transitioning from, the plan of the government to transition from, PMS consumption to CNG, which is really beautiful. How faster can we, implement some of these policies? Improving interconnectivity within Nigeria is also very important. The train system, the Lagos-Abuja road, the new road, and some of these things needs to be done. And I think we need to actually just localize our, security infrastructure and see how, we need to adopt. It's high time we started looking at this community policing and state policing and see how how that, quickly, helps us in providing security, especially for farmers. So I agree with you. Security is critical to this stability we are looking at, especially in terms of food production, and of course, financing is key as well, because we have places where, relatively security is high, is good enough, but, these farmers are unable to go back to the farm.
There's no access.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Akwemi. Okay, it's going to be a very long year. Everybody keeps saying that, and we're just hoping we can all make it,
We will.
make it out alive.
We are resilient people. We're
Thanks
resilient
for being
people.
here today.
Thank you, Ebuka, for having me.
Don't just stand